basically a dispute resolution for business owners. So I don't think it's a boxing match thing. I think it's just to sort of figure out how to resolve issues with your employees. So without further ado, Claude Freeman, ADR Services.
Terrific. Thanks very much. I'd like to thank Joel and Vince for having me today. I think it's a great opportunity to have some dialogue today and tell you a few things about some of the key issues hitting the world of insurance and employment. I'm going to try and move it along because there's a few things in here that I'd like to get past, so we can try to have a bit of a discussion, Q&A later. And one of the things is that you're going to see some awfully stark statistics and pieces of information here. And these are all to do with the linkages between workplace issues and disputes migrating into LTD claims. They're not all about disputes, but they can be about other issues about unhappiness in the workplace and that sort of thing. Unchecked, these things are having a huge cost on society. You're going to see some very staggering statistics and numbers up here. I'm going to try and keep it rolling so that we can get to the end later. Hopefully we can generate out of this a discussion and some Q&As that will help open up the door to, as Joel said earlier, I think, to just keep the momentum going in terms of the discussion alive and saying, okay, we've provided some resources, we've provided some training, some information. And so later, I guess, there could be follow-up saying, is there anything you need, or there are things we can help with in terms of workplace issues. So at the end of the day, it's not just workplace issues going into claims. A lot of this has to do with trying to prevent issues in the workplace from deteriorating and later becoming worse, even in the way of a dispute or an LTD claim. So I'm going to get into the terrific. So here are the key points that we're going to look at today. I'm going to talk about failing to be preventive and it's economically prohibitive. And how did we get here? Key stats in economics, and what are the options, and what are the services that I or we provide as some of the specialists in this area, as well as HR and plan administrator counseling, education, and benefits. In other words, the granular substance of those services and what are the benefits that you can pull out of them. Who are the winners? Some of the key testimonials in society that have helped to generate and keep this discussion going, as well as some of the key and positive aspects of preventive tools in the workplace. And then, of course, we're going to just have a quick chat about some of the unique experience that I bring to the table in terms of my circuitous route getting here and what's next. So first of all, failing to be preventive is really economically prohibitive. And over the years, I've had discussions with a number of employers and people in the insurance business that have actually stunned me in terms of the statistics that they provide and some of the numbers they give me. And we'll get to those later. So major issues affecting the group disability industry is such things as workplace unhappiness, toxic issues, mental health issues. We heard about that earlier, and that's a big part of it. Employees trying to find the easy way out by way of LTD, that happens. It's just a strict reality of life. Employers, I think, need to invest more in monitoring, prevention, and act earlier on employee issues. I think that's a key thing. We talk about EAP programs not addressing these issues. They address the issues directly with the employees, but they don't do the same thing that, for example, some of the people like myself or legal counsel who will be here later provide. They don't intervene directly in the same manner. And then there's some reported sales difficulties on group renewals due to escalating premiums. And I know some clients and some companies who aren't buying or renewing LTD services or coverages because it's just economically prohibitive. And there's some stark reminders in terms of those premiums and how they've escalated later that we'll see. But absenteeism and presenteeism. We'll talk a bit more about presenteeism in a second. Of course, the big one is the reduced employee engagement. In the last year or so, I can tell you that employee engagement is well below 40% on average. And that's unbelievable. So then how did we get to this point? Not sure if this is working. There we go. Sorry. So over the years, there's been a gradual increase in workplace and mental health issues, particularly since 2001. I know we're in 2018, but these numbers keep going on and on and on, and they're just getting worse. And a lot of these things are linkages between employees looking a quick way out and trying to get into an LTD claim. I think the HR or plan administrators have had trouble keeping up with management practices, workability seminars, and other solutions, simply due to the volume, speed, new issues, and the complexity of the issues affecting the workplaces. I call this the new iceberg of the 21st century. I think okay, there we go. Some of the key stats in economics, and these stats keep aging. I know you will see some of the dates on some of these blocks up here, but they just keep getting worse and worse. So despite some of these stats being 2010 or 13, that sort of thing, the same pattern and trend is recurring. Mental health costs in Canada are approximately $51 billion per year. That's a staggering amount of money. Absenteeism and presenteeism cost the country about $25 billion per year. And so let's talk just a bit about presenteeism, because it's at the other end of the scale of absenteeism. And presenteeism is really something where people come in the morning and they're not really happy to be there, but they pick up a file and they walk around all day with this thing under their arms, and they just look at, oh, it's time for lunch, a break, and sadly that's what goes on, and it's recurrent, and it's a very unhappy place for a lot of people to be in, and unfortunately, I'm sure for Winter will confirm, this doesn't do much for mental health, does it? So, employers surveyed reported that 80% of the mental health issues are in the top 3 drivers of STD and LTD issues and claims. Claims related to mental health. In 2010, 47% of disability claims that landed on insurers' desks were related to mental health issues. And that was double that of what they were in the year 2000. I don't know if this thing is. There we go. In terms of some of the other stats in economics, 79% of the workers surveyed reported that mental health issues of any kind affects work performance, and that's not a surprise. We talked a bit about presenteeism earlier. Well, these people who walk around with the same file on their arm all day, they're really not being very productive. Absent employees, 50% of employees who are absent for between 6 and 12 months, they never return to gainful employment. It rarely happens. And 90% of employees absent for 12 months or more never return. So I think this is all about early intervention. It's about very, very concrete and concise case management when these things come on your screen. And then life and health insurance costs, I was alluding to this earlier. Mercer did a study back in 2011, and they expected the premiums for LTD coverages to increase from $4,980 per employee per year. That was in 2011. That was the loaded rate. And they expected to get to somewhere in the neighborhood of $11,060 in 2019. So this is, I think also, and I was discussing this with Vince and Joel earlier, this could very well be an interesting sales tool in terms of trying to stem off premium increases. So mental health or mental illness and addiction in Canada, 78% of Canadian workers surveyed reported fears of losing their jobs over mental health issues. And again, this is generated by this fear about, well, if I'm not performing, I'm not doing this, or my personality is sort of way under the radar in terms of how everyone else is doing in the workplace that's going to affect me. And here's another one that is really interesting. There was a 700% increase in court-awarded settlements due to mental injury in the workplace between 2004 and 2009. And this keeps going up and up and up. And later we'll look a bit at some of the other case law issues that are driving some of the workplace claims and litigation issues. 84% of employers have really not much of a process to address significant changes in employee productivity or behavior. That's a staggering number, and I think this all goes back to looking at the workplace from different levels, both from a preventive level and from a level that makes it interesting for employees to be recruited by that company and retained by that company, keeping them happy. Early intervention benefits. So there's 20 to 30% reduction in workdays lost for claims by early intervention, 25 to 30% reduction in repeat short-term absence, and 40 to 60% reduction in LTD conversion. So those are big numbers, and that speaks volumes about the world of prevention in the workplace. So, let's go back to this one. There we go. So 2001, it was estimated that approximately 3% of LTD portfolios were with mental health claims. In 2014, these are estimated to be at approximately 44%. And a lot of the claims directors and so forth that I speak to in my scope of what I do tell me that 80% of the new psychiatric or mental health related claims, so non-physical stuff that lands on their desks, 80% of those claims on average likely or do have workplace issues embedded in them. That's a staggering number. So that's something to really look at. We talked earlier about the employee engagement numbers. A recent RDI report, that's the French CBC in Quebec, they did a survey in 2016, and employee engagement was at a 38% number. Gallup did a survey in 2015. That number was at 30%, which is just about what I see lately in some of the other workplace surveys that I come across. So what are the options? Do nothing and hope things improve or be preventive. I think, when employers fail to be preventive, there's a negative and cascading effect on insurers and reinsurers. The employers do, of course, but this whole business of employee benefits revolves around what the insurers provide as coverage, but it also revolves around the pricing of those products in the future as well. Just trying to get this. There we go. So some of the services that we provide, I mentioned earlier, the issue with workplace problems aren't just related to LTD claims. So if you have a problem in the workplace, it's not just about preventing it from getting into an LTD factor or an LTD bucket. It's trying to capture the problem before it actually gets worse. It could go to litigation instead of LTD. I see a lot of that. I do a lot of mediation on wrongful and constructive dismissals. And when I sit down with these people at the mediation table or at the labor arbitration table, it's always, well, I could have done this, should have done that, could have done that, and it's too late. So it's all about prevention. So we provide very, very detailed claims training modules for insurers. We do that. Preventive employer and employee seminars on workplace civility and respect. Reactive services are designed to prevent workplace issues from progressing further or becoming contentious. And those reactive services also include workplace conflict resolution. It's a different word than mediation. So when I go into a workplace, I try to not use words like mediation or investigation, because I'm trying to bring it down into something that doesn't sound as clinical. So we talk about workplace conflict resolution, fact-finding, which is another term for investigations. I do a lot of labor arbitrations, workplace assessments and audit. We go in and have a look and get a pulse of what's going on in the workplace and see what things management needs to look at in terms of workplace restoration. They sometimes call me in to say, we've got some issues, let's try and restore the workplace to what it was prior to things falling apart in the workplace. We do a lot of HR practices and coaching on trying to improve HR practices and absenteeism management type of services in terms of how to properly monitor absenteeism and provide reports for management, and how to try to capture what I call the frequent flyers on absenteeism. We provide some mental health and wellness through various specialists in the field. So I'm going to talk a bit about the employers having a duty of care, because the courts are not very tolerant of employers failing with this. And Keith is going to be here later, and he's going to be talking about that sort of thing. These are very, very important things, because I've seen some case law in the last couple of years where employers are really getting slammed with punitive and aggravated damages for not doing things properly in the workplace when there's a reported or alleged problem going on. And by the time it hits litigation, it gets very expensive. So we'll just go through a few of these rather quickly. So we have absenteeism management practices. That's a part of the duty of care. Opening employer-employee dialogue and civility training. Disciplinary practices and terminations. Often these aren't done properly. There's a proper and dignified way to do this with employees. Recognizing signs of potential issues, how to handle workplace problems, legal pitfalls resulting from failing to manage, horizontal job relocations, attracting and retaining good employees. I got the 10-minute signal there, so I'm trying to go on. So I think the thing with the recent court adjudication awards is that they're getting very, very expensive. There's a couple of employers in the last couple of years who got hammered with numbers like $500,000, $1 million in damages. We could have a whole different discussion about that. So in the interest of keeping this going, I'm going to, again, it's not really punishing, is it? Yes, it is. Okay, benefits. So in terms of HR, PA people, the enhanced employer visibility and reputation, reduced claims. It's easier for employers to recruit good employees when you have a really, really well-run, well-oiled operation. Potential for premium stability, that's a great sales tool. We had that discussion earlier. Prevention from embarrassing litigation and punitive awards. I was going to say that this is the high-altitude version of what I typically do and discuss with insurers and employers. I've put together some very detailed handouts at the back, and I think Joel was kind enough to put them on the table back there. They talk about all these things in great detail. They also attach with that is some biographical information, some background information for the people I work with called the Claims Management Alliance. We do a lot of great work, I think, in terms of providing preventive and reactive services for insurers. And again, we're having... Okay, so really, who are the winners? The winners are the employers, the insurers, the reinsurers, and the unions as well. Because I do a lot of work now with labor, and it's getting to be very, very well accepted as a preventive model. Some of the testimonials I'd like to talk about is the CRM. It's called Pocket Resource Management. It's used in the airline industry. It was started years and years ago just to get people who are working together in a confined space to work properly in a more amicable fashion. It's well used today, very important. Bell Canada does a yearly mental health dialogue every year to talk about this. This is a high level type of thing in the industry. We have the CSA standard that was adopted by the federal government in early 2013 to keep this thing going and to set some standards inside the government and for employment services about how to properly manage and set some guidelines for workplace and mental health issues. So there's a bit of a background information on me here, and there's some detailed info in the handouts out there. And again, as I said, this doesn't deal simply with claims issues. So it's all about these things that can prevent litigation as well. So what's next? I think it's about keeping the discussion alive, increase regular HR, PA training, prevention, and earlier professional interventions. And I would say to you, don't ever try to intervene internally because you're not a neutral. And I think that's a very, very important message. A couple of employers have got in big trouble for trying to self-mediate or self-investigate internally, and it failed, and we got hammered in court for that. So that's the quick and short. I probably have, 4.5 minutes for Q&A. Any questions, comments? Okay.
I attended your teach mental health awareness group.
Yes.
It made me very aware of how many people in the office can actually have mental health issues and it's hidden. You can't see it.
Yeah.
I know it sounds insensitive, but I feel as if the group benefits actually contributes to people's mental capacity. Because long ago, we never really heard about so many mental health issues. Getting such a big sum of money to be paid out for a long-term disability.
Yeah.
In my days, you get a job, for training family, you pay the bills. I think another thing has to do with people overspending, not being able to pay the bills. And then they get caught up in having problems. And other things, and sometimes it may be too late to confide in someone to help them. And then by then, just escalate.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of different reasons and root causes for these issues, and there's a lot of different demographics that have been affecting them over the last, say, 15, 20 years, that sort of thing. And I think that, we live in a much faster society. We live in an information explosion, and the demands on employees are much different now than they were 15 or 20 years ago. And, a lot of us are walking around with our smartphones day and night, and we're plugged into these things. And so the different levels of expectations, both from family, employers, and peers, and so forth, all have an impact. And the pie chart on contributing factors is something else unto itself, actually. Joel, any questions, any concerns? But anyway, I certainly invite you to either look at pick up a handout. I tried to print as many. I didn't know this was going to be almost sold out, so we've got quite a few out there. And certainly, I think you're putting it on the web next week or whatever. So that's great. Thanks very much.
Oh, there it is. Okay, so where are we in terms of our time? Oh, so you don't need me for that. We're on schedule, which is great. And so we will start having some lunch, and we're scheduled to come back at what time?
Just a reminder.
Reminder. You told me, now I forgot. So it wasn't a good reminder.
For those of you who have not put in your business card, and if you provide your business card, you might find that there's a notepad on your table. Please put in your names in the bowl that is on the table outside. We have some really fabulous note prizes, and I mean really fabulous, like beef tickets and things like that, courtesy of some of our sponsors and speakers today. So put that in there if you haven't done it. For those of you who have dietary restrictions, if you have specific needs, please talk to the servers that are outside. You may have a special plate that they will bring for you. That's only if you have dietary restrictions. For the rest of you, feel free to